Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. We are going to be going through the next leg of our journey, looking at Rabbi Avigdor Miller's New Translation Commentary of Duties of the Mind, which is a work that commentates in contemporary language, a book that was written a very long time ago that deals with serving HaShem with the mind. An often overlooked subject in the Torah world by many, many people. Even in the Orthodox Jewish world, Mussar isn't as popular, the concept of Mussar, that is ethics, isn't as popular as you might think. And it should be. And those of you with a Christian background, simply think of the Sermon on the Mount, the Beatitudes, and you'll be thinking in the right frame of mind as you watch this video. So I invite you to join me and learn with me as we go through and just find out amazing things from paragraph to paragraph. Things that'll make you, they may make you sad, they may make you glad, but they will guarantee they'll make you feel something. This won't be a video where you'll come away not feeling anything, let's just put it that way. But you'll be glad you did, whether it is for the good or the bad. If it's for the bad, it's actually better because it provokes you to do something about it and change something around. Okay, so we're up to part 12, and we're looking at the whole concept from the words of the sages. Did the sages talk about duties of the mind that much? Let's see. Okay. Once it became clear to me that the obligation to the mitzvot of the mind can be proved from the words of the Torah, just as it had been made clear through logic, the process of logic insists that the mind is a very important part of our identity, more so than the body, and therefore certainly the mind should be used in serving HaShem. If we serve HaShem with our body, we should surely serve Him with our mind. Once the author saw that the Torah has the same attitude towards the mitzvot of the mind as the sekel, as the intellect. Now, many of you may have been living a form of life that's vastly different to the one you're living now. And during that transition, you may have noticed that though you may refrain from doing something outwardly, something physically, internally, you may still have gone on and done that thing in your mind. And even to this very day, you may find yourself allowing your mind to wander into any territory unchecked, and at least in your mind still play out the same person that you were perhaps years ago, perhaps many years ago. And so that is a slow, but it's a natural process that if you are somebody who swore a lot, and you make this decision to refrain from using any type of swear word, whether how minor that swear word may be in your mind or how major that swear word may be, you may find that internally your internal monologue is still saying those words and will continue to do so for quite some time after. But the action of the verbalization of that word has been conquered. You've conquered the world of speech, and you refrain from saying that even under a lot of pressure, even when you're tired, even when you undergo a sudden burst of pain, you will refrain from using any of these words, but internally in your mind you may say the words. Now it's a slow process to the point where you eventually get to the point where you don't even say the words in your mind. And so we know that there is three worlds. There's the world of speech, the world of action, the world of thought. And Hashem judges us in all these three worlds, not just in the world of action. Because somebody may have an intention to do something wrong, and they may be thwarted by some sort of circumstance or occasion and may not have the opportunity to do that wrong. And therefore it's accounted to them as though they'd actually done it, even though some outside force caused them to be denied actually carrying out that avera, that sin. And so the same works in the realm of doing a mitzvah. If you start out with the intention to do a mitzvah and for some reason, for no fault of your own, you're denied the ability to do the mitzvah, it is considered as though you have done the mitzvah. So the door swings both ways. The process of logic insists that the mind is a very important part of our identity, more so than the body, and therefore certainly the mind should be used in serving HaShem. If we serve HaShem with our body, we should surely serve him with our mind. Once the author saw that the Torah has the same attitude towards the mitzvah of the mind, the mitzvot of the mind as the sekel, as the intellect. Okay, let's move on now. I sought this concept in the words of our sages, and I found it even more explicit in our words than what had been stated in the Sepharim of the Tanakh or derived from the sekel, that is the intellect, or the brain or intelligence. Some things are stated in general, but all are talking about the mitzvot of the mind, such as they're saying HaShem wants the heart. So whenever you read the notion of HaShem desiring our heart, this means that he's desiring our mind, because essentially our mind and our heart should be on this running parallel on the same stream. It's when somebody's heart is off desiring something that is unlawful, and yet the person by way of upbringing or tradition maintains the right propriety of his ways in terms of actions, then we have, or through speech, then we have the mouth saying one thing, the right things in this case, and the mind saying the wrong thing. And so this is just what we call lip service. And so we want the mind to be in accordance with the heart. We want the heart to be in accordance with the mind. And of course, we want the mouth to be in accordance with the heart and the mind. So the heart and the mind, when you see them referred to individually, are actually speaking of both, because we're meant to get both in complete accordance with one another and in complete alignment with one another. They should be echad, they should be one. In this general statement, the word heart, which is lev, actually means the mind. HaShem wants the mind, our conscious thought, our kavanah, which is, kavanah is spiritual concentration. So you want to have kavanah in your prayer. If you've been praying for a few years and you haven't come across this word kavanah, maybe you're new to doing your faith according to a Jewish perspective, then go off and have a look into a word study on the word kavanah, because this is what we're all aiming for in terms of our prayer, is that it have good kavanah. At this point, it is helpful to consider an example that is so basic it goes beyond the requirement of the phrase. Okay, here we are. We have some Hebrew here. Rekiman leba ba ye. I hope I pronounced that right. Probably not. Please bear with me if I haven't got that right. That's the phrase. The example is tefillah prayer. The Rambam says any tefillah that is said without kavanah is not considered a tefillah. This points to a major obligation that we have. Tefillah is something that occupies a large part of our lives. To do it correctly is a matter of training our minds to think, and training which is in itself a major obligation. A person must think about what he is saying during his tefillah, during his prayer. Otherwise, it is as if he didn't do anything at all. Of course, saying tefillah, even without kavanah, still has a benefit of demonstrating that the person is ma'amin, a believer. That is fine and well, but he is not fulfilling the mitzvah of tefillah. Now, in some minor way, he's fulfilling it, but for the most part, he's not fulfilling it. If you have poor kavanah, should you pray? Yes, absolutely, because you want ultimately the exterior to influence the interior. So if you internally you're a mess, but externally you're doing the right things, keep doing the external things, because eventually that externality will have influence on the internal side of things. Some people look upon this negatively and say, well, hang on, you're being a hypocrite. Not at all. Not if your intention is that, if you keep saying the right things and doing the right things, eventually they are going to be ingrained on your psyche and you'll start thinking the right things as well. It's just a question of time. Of course, saying tefillah, even without kavanah, still has a benefit of demonstrating the person is ma'amin, a believer. That is fine and well, but he is not fulfilling the mitzvah of tefillah. what Chazal meant when they said, here we are, here's this phrase again, Rikiman laeba kiya. I don't know why normally they have transliteration, and sometimes they don't, and it trips me up. Okay, so that's that saying again, and I probably butchered it, but anyway, Chazal, that is this era of sages, was what they were meant to be saying was that Hashem wants us to do l'shem shemayim, for His sake. Okay, so we're not praying to show off that we're praying. Look how awesome I am! I'm doing my morning prayers. Look how long I'm praying for. We are simply praying for the sake of heaven. The Shulchan Aruch, that is the set table, the code of Jewish law, has one section entitled, all one's actions should be for the sake of heaven. This means that many people are missing valuable opportunities to do mitzvot. The Shulchan Aruch explains that when a person sits down to eat, he should have in mind that he is eating l'shem shemayim. People who do not do this should open their eyes and see how they are wasting their time. So, a lot of people will sit down to eat and they're just sating their desires. And they'll make a bracha over it. Maybe they'll even say the bracha mazon afterwards. But at the end of the day, they're not eating with anything internalizing that they're eating to gain strength to serve Hashem more effectively. They're just eating because they're hungry and they like the taste of the type of tasty meal that they're making. People who do not do this should open their eyes and see how they are wasting their time. The opportunities are there in front of them since they're eating anyhow. They could just as easily add the thought that they're eating l'shem shemayim, for the sake of heaven, to serve Hashem so that they will have strength to serve Him. Growth in action, the thought that counts. If you are a typical person who goes to work and spends the entire day in a place of business, it would be a tremendous achievement if you were to add the thought that you are doing this in order to serve Hashem. You might think of the money you need to pay tuition for your children and to bring them up as worthy Jews. Perhaps you need money to support important charities and to strengthen Torah institutions. Possibly you need to support an impoverished family. If you would only put these thoughts in your mind once in a while, you would be doing exactly what Hashem wants from you. Hashem wants the mind. Why would you support a poor family, a poor secular family, if you have an opportunity to support a poor Torah observant family? I don't know how people are approaching their thinking. If you have an opportunity to help a poor family who is Torah observant, maybe 1,000,000 more times Torah observant than you can ever be, why would you in 1,000,000 years not support them and support some family of, some drug addict family down the road? I'm not saying that we shouldn't help them if we can in some way, but if they're like generational drug taking family, there's not much you can do. You're going to have to mortgage your home. They'll just pull you into their vortex, and before you know it, you'll have gone native and they'll have ruined you as well. So you've got to be smart. I don't want to just help an orphanage, a girl's orphanage, to help me do tshuva for any wrong things that I've done to the opposite sex over the past. But I want to help an orphanage that's based in Israel, that's teaching young girls who've lost their parents to war or famine or even drugs or whatever, and they're bringing them up in a Torah observant environment and getting them kosherly wed to Torah observant Hebrew scholars. It's just a no-brainer. That's who you're donating to. Why are you donating to some other charity that doesn't even have anything to do with the Bible? Or the holy people, the chosen people of Hashem. There could be any old charity. Giving to a charity is better than not giving to a charity, but worse than that, you're giving to a charity that really isn't doing anything that's going to be supporting anybody long-term spiritually. I know somebody who's deeply involved in a major charity in Australia. In fact, it's a family member. And I know how that operates and how that's a huge company. And if you knew how the funds were being used and how the wages that people are working at and the benefits that they get, you would be like never donating to that organization in a million years. And this is a major organization in Australia. I'll give you the initials, MA. Okay. But, they do some good work, like if we didn't have them at all, who'd look after the homeless? So it's an interesting conundrum. Okay, where I'm up to. Okay. If a person doesn't train his mind, it can be a means of leading him to averot, to sins. Very true. He must train his mind by keeping it pure of all wicked things. For example, by not reading vulgar newspapers and books, he should surely not watch TV or listen to the radio, and thereby avoid listening to goyim who try to speak to him in his living room every night. They are a session of fools and scorners. A person should keep his mind clear of contamination so that it will not lead him to sin. It might not lead him to do specific averot of which he is watching, but it will certainly lead him to do other averot. And he'll also think about maybe doing that same thing that he's watching in his mind. So in a sense, he's doing it, maybe not with physical action or speech, but he's doing it in his mind. And so, it goes without question that the internet is absolutely, don't be so wound up in the internet. Don't be so connected to Instagram. Why are you locked into Facebook? Why are you so locked into YouTube? Like, there should be millions of other things that, and you shouldn't be as attached as you are at the very least to these things. It will bring him to Makloket. It might not lead him to a specific averot of watching of those he is watching, but it will certainly lead him to do other averot. It will bring him to Makloket, disputation, arguments, to despising Talmid Chachamim, Torah scholars, and to despising the Torah. Because a lot of stuff you see, especially online, is cynical. It's Lashon Hara. It's Motzi Shemra. It's making fun of people. It's making fun of people who are serious, because people just want to see funny things to kind of tune out and to go on a kind of an escape. And this is what comedians say. They say this is a night of escapism. And so you're escaping from what? You're escaping from like bad things that are part of life. Hang on, why are these bad things? Because you're a pleasure seeker. You're just out to try and get as many pleasures out of the water as you can, as long and as constantly as you can. And when you're at work, you're busy accruing money to when you're not at work to going to seek these pleasures. And so when you're at work, it's a drag because you're just like, it's the cat chasing its tail. And so you've got no greater purpose to your life. And so your life is a drag because all you're doing is just trying to be entertained and receive pleasures. You're not fulfilling any other actual functional purpose in helping anything or any cause. And then at the very least, HaSatan will recruit you for one of his causes, and before you know it, you'll be walking across a bridge with a sign that says Free Palestine, and you are part of a protest supporting something that you didn't even enter your brain 2 years ago after an atrocity occurred from these very people that you are protesting in favor of. HaSatan will go, okay, you're not going to do what you're meant to do. I'll use you for something evil. And this is where HaShem allows those that don't follow him to be used as as rods against Hashem's people. And those that wield the rods against Hashem's people, eventually they're destroyed. But people are stupid. People are off their heads. If you've got any friends that took in the march on the Harbour Bridge the other day, get rid of them. I bet they're family members. Get rid of them, because they'll be the ones that dob you in sometime in the future, and you'll be rounded up. It'll be friends and family. You go, oh no, they're okay. You'll find that they're the ones that dob you in, and you'll get rounded up and executed. I'm telling you, we are heading toward another Holocaust, and no one is taking me seriously, at least that I can see anyway. We are definitely heading towards another Holocaust, a big whopper of a Holocaust too. Messianic movement, get your act together, because you'll be sharing the same foxholes as them. So, we've had a bit of time now to get our act together. You haven't got your act together? Well, you're going to get your act together through the legs. What doesn't come through the mind or the brain comes through the legs. Okay. It will bring to Makloket, disputation, to despising Talmudei Chachamim, Torah scholars, and to despising the Torah. Even though he doesn't do these things openly, in his heart he'll look down on all that's holy. A person can help doing these things if he's influenced by the nations of the world. And you can't keep watching these shows and wonder why you're not increasing in righteousness and holiness, and you keep failing and missing the mark all the time. Excuse me, I'll have a drink. Not only is the mind the salesman for Averot, the eyes have the same effect. If people go to sinful places like movies, theaters, their eyes will certainly betray them after a while. Sooner or later, they will be caught into a habit of looking at such things, and it will spoil everything they do. Their minds will become so corrupt that they will be continually polluted by wrong thoughts. Instead, people should keep their eyes on observant Jews as much as possible. Alternatively, their eyes should be focused on Sepharim and on the beauties of nature that HaShem created, and that is the beauties of Shemaim, heaven, and the Eretz, the earth. HaShem created the world full of Chokhmah, wisdom, and Chesed, kindness, and there is so much good to see in the world that if you train your eyes to look only at the good things, these are what we will see. And his eyes, those are what he will see, and his eyes won't deceive him. Some things are specifically mentioned by Chazal, not necessarily in Chazal in Pirkei Avot. Yeah, we're also simultaneously going through Pirkei Avot at the moment. I've still got one more video to do to close out Pirkei Avot. I'll read that again. Some things are specifically mentioned by Chazal in the Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers. These are not necessarily to mention at length because Pirkei Avot is so well known. One example of the treatment of mitzvot of the mind in Pirkei Avot is the following Mishnah. Think about 3 things and you won't come to do an Aveira. The first 2 are know what is above you, an eye that sees and ears that hear. Each person must think about this. So you must be constantly working on being aware of Hashem. And Hashem is constantly aware of you. He made you. What do you think he would make you so intrinsically complex and amazing and just go off and never have anything to do with you ever again? It's like, people who make something, these studios that make animatronics, they spent sort of 5 years making a new animatronic of the bust of Abraham Lincoln that fully animates and sounds like him and looks like him. And then they just walk away and leave it and don't even, of course not. They're going to be, spruiking it up to everybody and go, look at this that I made. And so Hashem's the same with you. He's made you and he's proud of you and he wants to see that you do well, not kill yourself. If not, he will be a Pikursut, he'll be a heretic all of his life because he never feels that Hashem is looking at him and is listening to what he says. It is an obligation for everyone to feel that Hashem is monitoring him. The third of the 3 things is all your deeds and words are written in a book. When a person realizes this, he'll be careful with what he says and how he says it. Clearly, a person who trains his mind, according to Pirkei Avot, is serving Hashem with his mind. And there's a note here. All the issues we are concerned with here are written down in Mussar, Sepharim that deal with Mussar. They tell us to live a life of thought. A person who fails to put thought into his daily life is a very poor example of a servant of Hashem. There are many other sayings of Chazal like that. For example, the Midrash says, when you enter before your Creator, enter with awe and fear, and when you pray, know before whom you stand. I think we'll leave it there. Keep the video fairly short today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've had a great week, and I hope that you found this interesting. Looked at more than a few things to really think about there. Looking essentially at the wisdom of the sages on the subject of duties of the mind. Until next time, HaShem willing, bye for now.